All right, Vinny Goodwill. Hey, man, look, I'll say it this way. Nobody who hasn't covered basketball before will feel sorry for you for following basketball, talking to some of the greatest athletes in the world, having access to some of the greatest athletes and greatest minds, general managers, coaches, scouts. Nobody feels sorry for you. But I got to tell you, I feel sorry for you because I have covered basketball. I have covered the NBA, and I know what it's like in the summer to go from Boston to Dallas and then think that the road is going to end in Dallas and then wind up going from Dallas to Boston and then not really sure if the show is going to end in Boston and then maybe have to go back to Dallas and then back to Boston again for Game 7. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I know the schedule's a little crazy. You tell me, because I'm so intrigued by your feed. One, what has the road been like? And two, why do you think that the road could get even more adventurous?
I think whenever you face a closeout game in the finals and there's a team with an enormous amount of pressure on them to win this game on this night, that makes for an intriguing set of circumstances. Like, don't get me wrong, and everybody thinks that I like to crack on Boston and everything else. Believe it or not, Michael Holley had a great time in Boston. Kicked it every night. You know, for the most part, it's been because of the people, not because of the city. But even within the city is cool.
You can't make that distinction. You can't make that distinction. They're one and the same. You can't look. Yeah, I can't say I hate the city and I love the people, or I love the people and I hate the city.
I don't hate Boston. I don't hate Boston. Okay. I don't hate Boston. That's the big misnomer. I don't hate Boston. Like I don't know if they're not bottom 10. I don't know if they're top 10, but they're definitely not bottom 10 on the NBA circuit of places that I don't want to go. Like when I know, I got to go to Boston, I'm like, I'm not feeling like that. And of course it's the finals. And it's June, so the weather is better and everything else, and you're not going to, catch that Boston cold, right? So it's been cool. But tonight, I think, for the Celtics, it's such a critical game. The longer this goes, as far as not just the series, but tonight, the longer the night goes, right? The butt cheeks get tighter, baby. You know what I mean? If you're not blowing them out, if you're only up by 6 and you keep trying to push it and you can't push it to 12 and you can't push it to 15, but you're in that sort of strike zone where, 2 Luka threes or 2 Kyrie threes can make a difference, it makes things very, very interesting. And as far as the flights, you're absolutely right. I will have a flight scheduled to go home in the morning, and I will have a flight scheduled to go to Dallas in the morning. The game will decide where I'm going. You know what I mean? And look, part of me says this, and I'll be perfectly honest here. Part of me says this. An Eastern Conference team has not swept a Western Conference team in the NBA Finals since my bad boy Detroit Pistons swept the Lakers in '89, right?
Wow.
There have been plenty of, lopsided series. It tends to happen. Remember, the Super Bowl used to be really lopsided every year for like maybe 15 years or so. Last year was kind of lopsided, and Denver finished off the Miami Heat in 5 games, and it was kind of, when you look back on it, you're like, oh, okay, it made sense. I don't think that Boston feels this enormous pressure, but I feel like it's starting to build just a little bit. You don't want to give Luka more time. You don't want Kyrie to break out of this sort of Boston malaise that whatever happens when he walks into the building, you know what I mean? He just all of a sudden starts, seeing the ghost of Celtics past and, forgets that he's Kyrie Irving. But I just think tonight is going to be one of those loose and free games for the Dallas Mavericks. And it's going to be one of those, the air is a little bit tighter for the Celtics. The Celtics should win. They're the better team. A lot of us want to go home. You know what I mean? But at the same time, Michael Holley, these things are tricky. A lot of us want to go home.
I'm laughing because the ghost of Celtics past and the ghost of Celtics present too. They're ghosts. There are lots of ghosts everywhere.
on a bunch of different levels.
On a bunch of levels. But I will say, in your example of, Celtics up by 6, butt cheeks start to get a little tight. I think Texas butt cheeks get tight, not Dallas ones, because if you're up by 6,
cheeks.
okay?
Cheeks.
All right, cheeks. Okay, all right. Whatever cheeks. get mo cheeks. All right, everybody starts to get tight, whatever it is. If you're trailing the series 3-1, I'll tell you who's tight. The team that's trailing 3-1. Now, it feels like it should be you because of what happened on Friday night. Everybody in Boston was ready on Friday night. Oh, it's going to be something. It's a shame they're not closing it at home, but, everything is, looks like all signs point to the Celtics, finishing this thing off. Every street teams were ready. Police officers were ready. Newscasts were ready. Everybody was ready. Plans. Hey, Friday night, I got my schedule clear, like around 11:15. Hey, we're going to take this into the weekend. And the Mavericks not only won the game, the Mavericks destroyed them. The Mavericks decimated them. And so that's where it feels like Boston is under pressure. But lest anybody forget, because, and I appreciate it, Vinny. We got new fans coming into NBA coverage and NBA engagement all the time. All the time, new fans are coming in. So some of the new fans may not remember that the one and only Michael Jordan was once up 3-0 in the NBA Finals over Seattle. Yes, Seattle used to have a team. Y'all don't believe that, huh? Seattle used to have a team. Anyway, they lose Game 4. They lose Game 5. And now here we are in Game 6, the great Michael Jordan, who always closed people out and, beat every opponent by 40 points and never missed a shot. I'm being sarcastic. But, yeah, they finally closed it out after, their city got ready too. Hey, we're going to do it in Game 4. We're going to do it in Game 5. Here we are in Game 6. So when you're up 3-0, you have the leeway to kind of suck for a night or maybe even a couple of nights before you get the job done. I don't expect them to suck tonight, but I do give credit to Dallas, believe it or not. I give credit to Dallas for displaying some things in Game 4 that I didn't see in other parts of the series. And let's start with this. Let's start with Luka. Luka just kind of minding his business. Luka playing defense, like Luka playing real defense. The entire game, being engaged on defense the entire game, being locked in, not talking trash to the officials. Luka heard the call. Luka heard the call out, and he responded. I thought he did very well. And look, those Dallas Mavericks are good enough. The ones that beat you in Dallas are good enough to beat you in Boston in Game 5 and send this thing back to Texas.
Oh, he's definitely good enough. And if you look at some of the metrics, some of the numbers, it feels like Dallas has gotten better every game. You got blown out in Game 1, you lose close in Game 2, you lose close in Game 3, and then you finally sort of lift the top off and you start hitting everything. Your defense sort of gets a hold of that Boston offense and their ball movement, and you kind of feel like if we stay out of foul trouble, if we stay in front of these guys for an extra step, maybe we can make them think. Part of me also says, like you, when the team is up 3-0, they have the right to take a game off, and that's what the Celtics did. I will say this as a caveat. Like you mentioned the 96 Bulls and going up 3-0 on the Sonics. The difference in that series was they lost games 4 and 5 in Seattle because the setup was 2-3-2, right? A note that the NBA should be willing to go back to. You should go, if it was a 2-3-2 in this series, we would have had a game yesterday because you wouldn't need the extra travel day, right? We could have had a Father's Day, Sunday night game. Instead, we got to play a game on Monday because the NBA wants to go 2-2-1-1-1 because they want to make us change planes. All right, cool. But but I will say this. Boston, as I said the last time we were on here, I think Boston is definitively the better team. Luka Doncic is the best player in this series. If Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and I wrote a story yesterday, Michael, talking about what it means to be a Celtic, like how much pressure it is. And Kyrie Irving kind of stirred it in the beginning when he talked about, I didn't embrace, Celtic pride. And if you don't embrace Celtic pride, and he kind of made it a reference to it being like a cult, but he was saying it in like a respectful sort of wink kind of way. He wasn't saying that they were, hey, this is Jim Jones, let's drink the Kool-Aid. It wasn't one of them type of things. But I bring that up, Michael, to say that's where the element of pressure comes in. because of all the things that you mentioned. The streets are going to be blocked off. Causeway Street is going to be a zoo if the Celtics win tonight, which is why a lot of us are thinking, man, we might just sleep, we might bring some sleeping bags and stay inside the Boston Garden tonight because they ain't going to let us out. You know what I mean? But the pressure, Michael Holley, the franchise is desperate at this point. Like you're saying, you can mess around. You can mess around for a game. You can't mess around for two. You can't give away 2 games in the NBA Finals because then you're playing with something. And Boston's not that good where they can afford to let go of the rope, drop another game, go to Dallas. Then we're really talking about something that's really perilous. You know what I mean? And you don't want to have to come back to a game 7 in your building after losing 3 games in a row. Like at some point it's going to happen. At some point, some team, and I think it's going to happen in our lifetime, some team will come back from a 3-0 deficit to win a significant playoff series. It will
just hope
happen.
it doesn't happen to you. You hope it doesn't happen to you. It better not be you.
Mm-hmm. It better not be you. Hey, look, you know what it's like. You in school, your parents tell you, look, I don't care what, what Johnny and David over there doing. Don't let that be you. Don't let that be you.
You were in my house. You were in my house the last couple of weeks. Hey, my friend got a 67. Listen, that ain't my problem. Okay, I don't care what your friend got on the test. Your friend got a 67, so don't try to tell me, well, my friend got a 67, so my 78 looking pretty good. No, your 78 does not look good. Okay, the 78's not good. I don't care what your buddy did. This is about what we expect, the standard right here. So yeah, you are speaking my language. Absolutely, and there's more. I don't want to get into all this. Now you got me all distracted. Now I'm thinking.
Parenting by Michael Holley.
Hey, Michael Holley and many others. There's some parents out there like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. They try to deflect. They try to take it over here. The conversation's over here. They try to bring it over there and tell you what everybody else is doing. It better not be you, Boston. It was like, now it's funny. You covered the Eastern Conference Finals last year, right?
No, I covered the West Finals. I watched the East Finals. Well, I watched that disaster. I watched that disaster from the crib, baby. And that's one of those series where it goes too far.
Okay, there it is. Celtics were down, zip 3 to Miami. Win game 4 convincingly. They win game 5 relatively convincingly in Boston. Game 6, miracle, really a miracle play. Derek White with the tip in at the buzzer just before the buzzer, and they win game 6. So here you are. You were down zip 3. Now you forced to game 7 at home, and then we know what happened. And then Miami came through. Jason Tatum, twisted his ankle in the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game, and Miami kept playing the way they had been playing in the first 3 games of the series, and it really wasn't a game. But it shouldn't have to come to that. We'll see. Now, I'm curious about this. Another item in your feed where you said you're talking about the history of the league, where it's not really, this is not the time to be historic, or this is not the era for historic teams. What do you mean by that?
Well, we talk about and we champion that this is the age of parity, right? You've had 5 different champions in the past 5 years. You haven't had a repeat champion since the 17-18 Golden State Warriors of Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry. Because of parity, because of, the salary cap and everything else that's going to be more instituted now in the new CBA, it's going to be harder to maintain talent, maintain dominance. It's going to be harder to do that. So even though the Celtics have all these great numbers, they're top 5 in net rating all time. They're one of the best 3-point shooting teams of all time, which contributes to you having such a, disparity in net rating. All the metrics, all the numbers say that this team is a historic team. You look at their 64 wins, what they've done in the playoffs to this point. One game doesn't change what the numbers say. I'm just saying, even if the numbers tell me that this is a great historic team, it doesn't feel like they're a great historic team. I don't think we're going to see them, so I don't expect them to be what we've seen in the regular season night after night. Like when I think of historic teams, and you know this, Michael Holley, you think of maybe the 444 76ers. You think of maybe one of the Birds Celtics, one of the, Magic in 87, Jordan's Bulls, 91, 92, 96. Those teams had a supernova. Those teams had a singular, bus driver who didn't just influence winning, but who drove winning.
Right.
The Celtics got a bunch of influencers, right? And I don't say that in a negative way, but they don't have that athletic driver of winning who is just such a singular talent. So it just lessens. It means the margin for error in these situations is a little more lessened, is a little thinner than what the numbers say. And I just don't think in general, like we thought Denver was going to be back this year. They're not. You know what I mean? Like we thought the Lakers possibly would be back. They're not. We thought Golden State could be back. They weren't. So I applaud the Celtics for getting here. I applaud the Celtics for their regular season, but I'm just saying, let's just pump the brakes a little bit on calling this team historic. Like, it's like I know this, Michael Holley. That 2018 won one championship, right?
Right.
They won one.
Right.
They get treated like they won five. They get treated like they won five. Every time I turn around, it's a Celtic from 2008. And I know today's the anniversary is 6/17. That's the Boston area code, and it's the anniversary.
That is.
Like I never knew so many people believed in numerology. You know what I mean? But I will say this. The Celtics will get a lot of mileage out of this championship. If your responsibility is to win this championship tonight, preferably. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and saying, hey, this team could be historic. This team could be a dynasty. I don't believe it.
Well, okay. There are a few things there. Number one, on the 5 different champions in the NBA, some of this stuff is quirky. Some of it's quirky and some of it can be explained very easily. Okay, why didn't the Toronto Raptors repeat? Well, Kawhi left. So let's move them aside. That's easy to explain. The best player, Finals MVP, leaves, you're probably not going to repeat. They were good, the franchise didn't fall apart, but Kawhi left. So get them out of there. Why didn't the 2022 Golden State Warriors repeat? Well, Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole in the face, and they got old. They were old. That was the end of them.
You can get old overnight. You can get old overnight.
That's what happened to them. Let's push them aside. Whatever you feel about it, I'm not taking away this. Hey, let them hear me on the West Coast. Hear me on the West Coast. Hear me in Los Angeles. Okay? Hear me. Los Angeles, Santa Monica. Okay, all you Lakers people, hear me. I'm not saying the bubble championship did not count. It counts. But there's a bubble. They're the bubble Lakers. They were they were a temporary team outside of AD and LeBron. They still are. They have been. They take AD and LeBron, then they change everything else. Support staff, coaches, everything. So that you can push them out of the way. So now we got now we're left with the Bucks and the Nuggets. I don't think the Nuggets are done. I think this time next year we could be talking about Celtics Nuggets. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Celtics Nuggets in June 2025 would not shock me. As a matter of fact, I expect it. And then the Bucks panicked. They panicked. They panicked over a couple of years. One, they fired the head coach, which they shouldn't have done. They fired Mike Budenholzer. They lose in the first round. They turn around, they trade Drew Holiday. They panicked and they got stupid. So it was panicky, hey, why aren't we what we're supposed to be? They panicked over 3 years. You can point to a panic move every 3 years. Hey, listen to Giannis saying, hey, if they don't make the moves, I may be out of here. So they are now under this artificial deadline, even though Giannis is signed. Giannis, we'll talk when you get to your contract year. Let's see that. Giannis, they listen to him. They fire Coach Bud. They trade Drew Holiday to Portland. And then watch Portland trade Drew Holiday to Boston. They let go of Grayson Allen. Nice complimentary piece. They did a lot of panicky things that championship organizations don't do. So I don't think we're past the era to get to, I think we disagree on this. I don't think we're past the era of multiple champions. I think it might be Denver, it might be Boston. I think that's my pick. One of those two is going to grab multiple championships over the next 3 or 4 years. And one more thing.
I think it's very premature to say that, but go ahead.
Oh, and one more thing, and I was here's just a question. When you talk about these historic teams, because we all saw it. We all saw Jordan. Nobody has to say, oh, I don't appreciate Jordan this time, but I will in 10 years. I don't appreciate Magic or Isaiah. People did. NBA fans knew what they were seeing with those individual talents. But did you know at the time when you were watching Detroit, the first championship, when they won the first one over the Lakers, did you know that this is going to be a great all-time team? It's just like, I didn't know that then. I didn't know the Bulls, when they won their first one, that we were looking at a great all-time team. Now, a few years later, you have some perspective on what it is, but it's very rare when you see a team in the moment, you say, this is the greatest team of all time, or one of the great all-time teams.
Well, for one, I guess this is where our ages kind of show, because I was really, really young in 1989, so it's hard for me to contextualize.
Me too.
I
was too.
What my kindergarten behind thought in that moment. You know what I mean? I was just happy, right?
I wasn't in kindergarten.
I figured. I reckon you weren't. But I think when a team is dominant and they've been, knocking on the door, and once again, you have a singular star. Isaiah Thomas, a singular star, lifts all tides. Michael Jordan, greatest player of all time, right? Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, very good players. Great players. Let me rephrase that. Let me not short them. They're great players, right? They're absolutely great players. I thought before the season that Jason Tatum was one of the maybe 4 or 5 players, maybe not 4 or 5 best players in the league, but 4 or 5 players that I could see him being the best player on the championship team, right? One of the other 5 players I thought could be the best player on the championship team was Luka Doncic. Now to your point about backtracking about what you said about Milwaukee. I know the events of this year have made every move look like it was a dumb move. Firing Mike Budenholzer, trading Jrue Holiday, letting Grayson Allen go. Part of that's a salary cap thing, right? Grayson Allen, he went for $475 in Phoenix. That's money that the Milwaukee Bucks didn't have because of this new CBA. The Jrue Holiday point, I think we have to contextualize, right? Jrue Holiday with these Celtics can be the 4th best player, right? Behind Tatum,
right,
behind Brown, behind Kristaps Porzingis, some nights behind Derek White. Like the responsibility of the weight that he has on his shoulders in Boston compared to Milwaukee is disproportionate. So he can play above his head here, and not that it's gravy because he's still an integral part, but he doesn't have the majority of the bricks, that he has to carry. Remember that brick scene in the Jackson 5 mini series where they were carrying the bricks from one side of the yard to the other side of the yard because Joe Jackson just wanted to make them boys strong and keep them out of trouble. And then Boyz II Men and they soft asses came up there trying to fight. Remember that?
That's right.
I'm sure Natalie's up there rolling her eyes right now. But Jrue Holiday didn't have to carry the majority of those bricks here in Boston. He was going to have to be the 2nd best player in Milwaukee behind Giannis because Chris Middleton wasn't going to be healthy all the time. So I understood the logic behind, hey, we got to get a better 2nd best player here to supplement Giannis Antetokounmpo. And just because the Milwaukee Bucks screwed up the hire of Adrian Griffin and subsequent firing of Adrian Griffin didn't mean that they weren't justified in letting go of Mike Budenholzer. I don't think that was a mistake.
Okay.
They made They made subsequent mistakes after that. And here's the other part. Because there's all this pressure on when you have a superstar, to keep him happy. You're looking at his contract. I'm looking at practicality. A superstar can ask out at any point, no matter how many years are left on his contract, and he will have the public and the NBA on his side because teams will line up to trade for him. The league will sort of turn a blind eye to it and say, hey, it's what his right is. He's got a right to ask for a trade. And there'll be all this intrigue because the NBA thrives off of trade intrigue, right? So you have to understand that Giannis is going to keep your feet to the fire at all times. That's just the way that the NBA is built nowadays. So you may not have these repeat champions because you're going to strip yourself of a little continuity. You're going to strip yourself of a little sweat equity to keep up with the Joneses, to keep getting better. As you wind up paying players who may not necessarily be worth it, but they've earned their money, you're going to have more parity, I believe, in this NBA just because of the way the salary cap structure is built.
I love what you're saying, and we'll see. We will see next year.
The Celtics better worry about getting this one. You talking about next year? They better handle their business tonight.
That's right. Well, I'm just talking, we're talking big picture. We'll come back to tonight soon. We got a very special guest coming up, a Hall of Fame guest, Mr. Marc Spears. Oh yeah, Marc Spears. He's going to join Brother from Another right after this. Over the weekend, I texted Marc Spears after reading an incredible story in Anscape. And incredible not because the circumstances made you feel great about society. Incredible because the story was being told in a compelling way, as most Marc Spears stories are, and the aftermath of turning a negative event into a positive one. Washington Wizards general manager Will Dawkins racially profiled by a Saks Fifth Avenue security guard who was assisted by the Miami Police Department. And Will Dawkins told his story to Marc Spears. I told you a Hall of Famer was joining us. Here's a Hall of Famer, Hall of Fame basketball writer, Hall of Fame basketball contributor, Marc Spears. And Marc, I'm just going to tell you this, man. I've invited you to my classes at BU before. It didn't work out. We had a technical difficulty that day. But the reason I invited you that day is your reporting experience and your ability to interview. I think you are one of the best interviewers in America because you get people to you listen, and you get people to tell their stories in ways that a lot of people can't get them to relax and open up. And I think this is a prime example of it. This Will Dawkins story, man, it just really hit me in so many ways, especially when you quoted Will saying his mother told him, this story didn't happen to you. It happened for you. So for you to tell your story. What did you think when you first heard about this? And was there any hesitation by Dawkins to be as open with you as he was?
Well, when I first heard it, I think it's just a reminder to African American community and a lot of people of color that doesn't matter how much success you have, doesn't matter how much money you have, you could face racial discrimination on any day. And the man was basically minding his own business, bought a shirt, had the receipt, had the shirt, and still got, damn near tackled by the Saks Fifth Avenue security guard and a Miami police officer, and, who, once they looked at surveillance, he didn't even look like the guy. That's the thing. I wish I had a picture of the guy, but it's got to be disheartening because, any time he walks into a store now, you can't help but think about what happened. It's really, really sad because, but because of what his mother said, which I think was eloquent, I think he realized that by him telling his story, maybe it helped somebody else. By him telling his story, maybe there's another store that changes the way that they look at things. I had a similar incident, not as bad as his, but a racially profiling incident with some friends in Healdsburg, California last year. And while that store didn't do nothing to change anything, the city did, made some changes. So I think that's what he was thinking, because if you think about it, Will could have sued Saks.
That's right. He could
have sued him. He could have made a lot of money, but instead of doing that, he decided to raise some money for charity. He didn't ask for a penny. He asked them to change their policies and work together instead of making this a big fight. And there's a lot of people that wouldn't have been so gracious and such a terror to help others instead of helping himself. And that says a lot about his character, even in the midst of a bunch of pain.
Yeah, Marc, that was the thing that struck me when I was reading the story was that, and I know Will a little bit, just very mild-mannered, very, professional, very, upstanding, in his approach and how he handles things. Mark, I'm curious, because of the grace that he showed, what were his emotions like when you talked to him? Because we are clearly, when the incident happened, we're a few months removed, several months removed from him, but those things stick with you. So was there still anger and frustration there, or was there other emotions that you could sort of convey when you talked to him?
Yeah, no, I think he said, I asked him, did you stop going to malls? Did you stop going to stores? He's like, I like shopping too much. I had to get over it. but he said for a while, and even from time to time now, he still looks behind his back, checks his surroundings, makes sure he's okay. I don't think that goes away. It doesn't. It's going to stick with him. And so, no, he's having some, from time to time, you get that pain, you get that anger. The fact that somebody would grab you like that, didn't identify themselves. And that security guard had since been, released of his duties. I think he knew that night, according to Will, that he probably was about to lose his job. In fact, the Miami police, after he told them who he was, they Googled him, and Will said they took exit stage right. Like they're like, we ain't getting involved in this. You're on your own, Sachs dude. So no, I don't. I think he has his moments, but having this collaboration with Saks Fifth Avenue, and I give him credit for this. They made. He wouldn't tell me how much it was, but they made sizable donations to 3 different places. And they retrained their security guards. And if one of the security guards messes up, they're going to retrain them again. Perhaps if there was something I was a little disappointed in, or I didn't ask Will this, was why didn't they make this policy throughout the country instead of just this one store? Right? Perhaps they should have retrained everybody throughout the country. So I think that's where perhaps Sachs was, could have done much more. But in terms of being accountable, apologizing, making sizable donations, I give Sachs credit for basically being upfront about being wrong.
You know what, fellas, I didn't major in psychology at all, and maybe took a few you minored? You minored in it?
Yeah, I minored in it.
Well, you tell me this. You tell me if my theory, if it has any weight. Listen, well, okay. Hey, listen, we'll figure it out on TV. We'll solve. I didn't major in basketball either. I talk about it all the time, So, but I have this theory. Tell me if it holds weight. I think you see great examples of self-hatred and classism in a lot of high-end luxury stores from security personnel and from the people who some of the salespeople. Because look, man, you're going into the store, in a lot of cases, we can afford it. Okay? We can afford it. But
or you wouldn't have walked in the store in the first place. I ain't walking into a Lamborghini store.
Right. But because of the way we look, sometimes the staff that cannot afford it, frankly, sometimes the staff looks at us like we shouldn't be there. And so I think the intensity and the gaze just goes up like 25 levels. And so it's really nuts how this happens. And unfortunately, this story is familiar. It's familiar. What makes the story different is that it happened to a Washington Wizards general manager who, as you pointed out, Mark, didn't just say, hey, this happens all the time. I can't believe this. Okay, I'm going to let it go and move on. This guy said, no. I'm going to do something about it, and I'm going to draw attention to it. I think it's phenomenal because a lot of general managers, a lot of people this happens to, they're so humiliated, they want it to go away, or they're so angry that they go for that money, but not talk about some of the lessons learned in the story.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I had that incident in Healdsburg, and people could look it up if they want to look it up, last year, it was 5 of us, including Eddie Kennison, former NFL star. We did a wine tasting and then went to this furniture store in Hillsburg, and immediately you saw the people like get from behind the cash register and kind of watch us and watch where we're going. And you know, once they calmed down, and we all had like church clothes on, so I don't know how we look like these. I know how we look like these, but the lady had told me, I'd asked her about the bathroom, and she said it was a police station across the street where you could use the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
And then I indulged her. I'm like, okay, because maybe that's true. I'm like, the police station, and this is where she, I think, crossed the line where she said, well, don't worry about it. You won't get arrested.
Ooh.
And so, like, and before that, I think oftentimes when you go into that situation where you're being racially profiled in the store, you go into it thinking like, I'm buying something before I leave. I have to buy something to prove to these people that I have the money to buy something. And I've made the mistake of doing that before.
Amen.
And before I asked the bathroom question, I caught myself because I was gonna buy something just to prove to them that I deserve to be there. And then I was like, that's stupid.
Right.
Why do I even want to give them any of my money?
Right.
Oh, that's like the scene in Boomerang where, Martin and Eddie Murphy and they're in the suit store and they're all nattily dressed. And the guy comes up and says, that jacket is $1,800. And Martin was like, what, you think I can't pay for it? And he says, we don't keep cash in the store. It's like that when I was reading the story after I was done with it, I was thinking of that scene, especially when they walked out and Eddie Murphy yelled, now, to the guy, and the guy jumped like it was, like somebody had pulled a gun on him. Like that's, it's, I think as Black men, and we're all of a certain age to some degree. I'm a little bit younger than you guys, but you feel like, I'm saying just a generational thing. I'm just saying generational thing. Oh, okay. Like it crosses generations. You ain't that much younger.
You ain't that much younger. But anyway, go ahead. Go ahead. We're listening. Go ahead. Make your point.
I think I was going to say was you feel like that awareness, when you walk in a store. Like you feel that if you walk into something high end, like that eyes are going to be on you, no matter who is actually. It could be Black people working there, and you know that the eyes are going to be on you. Mark, I don't think that ever leaves you, right? No. I'm sure as much as Will Dawkins loves to shop, when he goes into a Saks or Neiman's or something like that, he's got his surroundings not just on loss prevention. Yeah. He's got his eyes on the salespeople. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and then the one thing that's good with him is I think he got closure on something so bad and that they're doing something better. With my situation, there was no closure. In fact, the lady reached out to me later, told me she had one Black friend and that she wasn't.
Not that one. Not that one. Not that comment.
She had a Black girlfriend. And she knows what Black people go through. She had one Black friend for 20 years. And there's no way
that special one
racially profiled in my store.
Just that one. Why only one? Why only one in a generation? Only one. Don't you find that problematic?
One.
What about her? I got one white friend.
Those friends? How come her Black friends, or how come that woman's or whoever's Black friends don't rock with you? You know what I mean? Yeah. You got the one Black friend, but that person's friends don't rock with you for whatever reason.
Yeah. So she was trying to explain to me by watching the video, there's no way I should have felt racially profiled.
Okay. All right. Well,
man.
I'll tell you.
I exited the conversation because I ain't nothing good gonna come from this, man. She showed me how she stood.
But you know what? And the last thing I'll say on this, because I want to ask you a couple more things before we move on, before we get out of here, Mark. I think we all can relate to this too, whether it's your parents or your friends. Just having somebody who you can tell your story to, who understands your position and can give you wise counsel. Will Dawkins' parents are fantastic.
Oh yeah.
I mean, between the quotes you had from him talking about the conversations with his mom and conversations with his dad saying, hey, this is your
and
moment.
His dad pushed him to do something.
Would you want your son to go through this? Would you want your son to go through it? No.
Yeah.
So amazing.
And I give Will Dawkins credit on this. One, obviously, has amazing parents. And he said that what his parents told him kind of pushed him over to do something publicly. He also made a point before the players went, off to wherever they went at the end of the regular season in their exit meeting to tell them about what happened to him and for them to be careful. Like, how sad is this, right? You got these multi-million-dollar, predominantly black men on the Washington Wizards, and your African-American general manager is basically like telling you the same story, Holley, that you tell your son about driving while black and stuff like that, right? Like, as much money and prowess as those guys have, the general manager still felt like, and was certainly, I think, being a father in a sense, telling them like, hey, man, I know how big of stars you guys are, but this can still happen to you.
Well, let's switch gears here. Not a convenient place to switch gears on a story like this because it's ongoing. So I just want to thank you for writing the story and thank Will Dawkins for sharing it. How do you feel about the NBA Finals right now? I think we all had a certain thought when it was 3-0 Boston, and then the blowout happened. It was the beatdown. It wasn't a blowout. It was a beatdown. Now you're in Boston just like Vinny is for Game 5. How do you feel about where we are right now in the series?
I think the Celtics, and Holley, you know better than me because you watch them very, very closely being in Boston. They always trick off one game, man. and so I think what's confusing to me is it's been since 2008 since you guys have won a title. One guy on the team who's won one. Nobody else has won anything. You got a guy in Al Horford who's almost 40. He's never won it. So I think the thing was stunning to me because I asked Jaylen Brown after the game, like, what went wrong? And he's like, they just gave more effort than us tonight. And I thought about the Celtics fan who flew from Boston for that celebration, right? Like the people that filled up TD Garden that led to two dudes even fighting at the end of the thing. They were so frustrated. Two Celtics fans fought. But it's like the Celtics fan was more ready for that game than the Celtics were themselves.
That's right.
I was buying into how, like, Joe was getting these guys ready and focused, and I just really was shocked by the lack of effort and the beatdown that took place. Like, you got to give Dallas credit, man. They didn't want to be viewed as a team that was swept. They fought hard. I think Boston's going to be fine. I'd actually be shocked if they don't finish it up and win tonight. But for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, like, this is an opportunity to exercise ghosts. This is an opportunity to be a part of Celtics lore. There's no two players in the NBA that have more pressure to win a championship than those two. And they could walk into that room with Russell and Bird and Pierce, that elite room that unless you win a championship doesn't matter. They could get that banner that is one more than the Celtics. There's so many things at stake here that their lack of effort was stunning to me. But I think with the Celtics crowd and the don't play with fire, mentality, they better win tonight.
See, I told you.
I told you, Michael Holley. What Vinny said. Pretty much, Vinny's only answer is, I told you. I told you so. It's pretty much his position.
They got to win tonight, man.
Well, now, okay, I guess that's where we disagree. Do they have to win tonight?
Don't play with fire, Scarecrow.
They don't have to win tonight. I think they will win tonight. I think they should have a better effort tonight. And I agree.
Is need a better word than have?
Oh, you don't need to until you need to. Do you need it? Do you need to? No. If you don't
Better.
win tonight, the NBA, yeah, they'd be advised. You know, it's in your best interest. Let's put it that way. It's in your best interest. It's in your best interest. It would behoove you to win this thing tonight, because the longer it goes, and thoughts start to creep into your head. Anything can happen. You know, Luka Doncic could just say, hey, I ain't talking to the refs no more. I ain't messing with the refs. I'm just going to focus on my business. I'm going to play defense. And who knows? Who knows what that turns into.
And Porzingis is still hurt.
Yeah, and he's still hurt. And you saw Dallas just having a field day at the rim the entirety of Game 4, having a good time above the rim. I want to ask you guys about this. I want to play the sound first. I didn't, and I guess this is appropriate for Charles Barkley, because Charles Barkley has had a career of saying things that you don't expect him to say. Even when you think you know what he's going to say, even if he says something before and a similar situation comes up, and you think, oh, I know what Charles is going to go on this, he gives you a left turn, a little bit of a wiggle. So here was Charles Barkley over the weekend talking about his TV future.
You guys been great to me for 24 years, and I just want to say thank you to my entire NBA family. I love you guys. You know, there's been a lot of noise around our network the last few months, and I just want to say I've talked to all the other networks, but I ain't going nowhere other than TNT. But I have made the decision myself, no matter what happens, next year is going to be my last year on television. And I just want to say thank you to my NBA family. You guys been great to me. My heart is full with joy and gratitude. But I'm going to pass the baton at the end of next year. I hope the NBA stays with TNT. But for me personally, I wanted you guys to hear from me, because I'm not doing any more interviews. Don't y'all be calling me. Nobody calling me. I'm not talking about this again, but I want to tell my NBA and NBA TV and TNT family that I'm not going to another network, but I'm going to pass the baton to either Jamal Crawford or Vince Carter or you, Steve. But next year, I'm going to just retire after 25 years, and I just want to say thank you, and I wanted y'all to hear from me first.
So we all have watched TNT. We all watched Charles Barkley ball. We all watched Charles Barkley on TV as well. And I made the case that as great as his Hall of Fame career was, and it was incredible, didn't win a championship, so what? Great player. I think, Mark, that he was better on TV. He was a game changer on TV. He was like the best, I was going to say the best athlete who transitioned to TV, but maybe just like athlete or not. Just, I'll make the argument, the greatest analyst on TV, if you put in everything, his experience, his ability to entertain, his ability to adapt. It's hard to put his career into perspective, but I know you two are up for it. Mark, I'll start with you. What do you think?
Well, I mean, certainly, dare I call him the GOAT of sports analysts. He's always entertaining, always fun. You know, even as late of night as that show could be, I'm going to stick in there a little bit more because Charles is going to say something funny. I think he also had the great ability to be able to not only be a comedian, but to make fun of himself. And, you know, so to see a star be able to take a joke, not take it personal, have fun with it, give some great insight is amazing. And, you know, I want to give a shout out to Tara August, who used to work for Turner Sports. Charles could have been retired like 4 or 5 years ago, and she basically spearheaded a charge to go to Arizona, talk to him, and convince him to come back. So, you know, if it wasn't for her, he would have retired several years ago. Just because I believe he will retire. I don't think he is off of television. I could see him having some other projects, doing some other things. Maybe doing more to help HBCUs as he's been doing. So I don't think he disappears, but if Ernie's not sitting next to him, which, Ernie hasn't said what he's going to do, but I could see him moving on as well. I can understand, like, those two guys have to be together in order for this show to still have that to basically exist. So no, I believe what he's saying is true. I just don't believe that his TV is over with.
Well, he sounds really sincere, and I think Chuck is always, whether it's in public or private, Chuck is always saying, "Get 2 more years and I'm done. 2 more years and I'm done." I will believe it when I see it. I'll just say that. I believe when I see it. I believe that he's sincere in that moment. I don't think this was just an idle threat or a bluff or anything like that. But someone's going to come and offer some big money to Chuck. I don't know who it's going to be, but someone's going to come and offer him a big pile of money, and he's going to have to say no to it. I don't know when that's going to be, but I will believe it when I see it, whether it's next year or the year after, that we don't see Charles Barkley, on somebody's set doing something. And Mark, you said something really, important over there. The ability to let yourself be the butt of the joke while not being like a buffoon yourself. You know what I mean? Like, Chuck's ability to have fun with himself means that everybody has to take the joke. Ernie has to take the joke. Kenny ain't necessarily the most fun person in the world, but because you're around Chuck, you have to take the joke. Same thing with Shaq. Like, if this was a situation where Chuck took himself too seriously, this wouldn't be as fun. You know what I mean? Like, even Draymond Green, who I really like, Draymond takes himself really seriously. Will you be able to make fun of Draymond Green or some of these new guys who are a bit more sensitive on that part? You know what I mean? Will you be able to make fun of some of these guys who have been part of the social media age, for the past 10 or 15 years, so they think they have thicker skin and they don't? Like, Chuck really does have thick skin. He gonna dish it out and he gonna take it. You know what I mean? Like, I can speak to you from that personally, right? We go back and forth with nicknames that we can't say out loud on television. You know what I mean? But Chuck is just that guy. Chuck is just the guy. And that's why I think this ain't the end. This ain't.
Well, let's parse words, though. Let's parse words. He said, I'm going to retire from television. Now, what do we consider television? Is streaming television? Movies aren't television.
I don't think Chuck was trying to parse his words like that. I think he meant what he said.
I know. I think he meant what he said. I'm retired. But to Mark's point, he's not going to disappear. He's retiring from television analysis. Yeah, he's not going to wind up on somebody else's studio show. But he's so charismatic.
You know what? I think the camera loves him. I got to be here every week. Maybe the NCAA tournament stuff, like all that. Probably is 61 years old. Probably a little grinding. Like Vinny, I'm not even going to disagree with you. You could be right. He could come back, but I do think with each passing year, getting on the plane, going to Atlanta, doing a month's worth of NCAA tournament stuff, it might see it every time you get on that plane now. It probably gets a little bit harder and a little bit tougher. But doing sporadic things that you want to do, that's what I think will be more attractive to him.
All right, listen.
Money
now
talks,
you guys.
like you said.
Hey, listen, I can't now. I know who I am. I know my place in the world. I'm just going to be in Boston hanging around all day. You guys got work to do. You guys are important. Like we got the great Vinny Goodwill. We got the Hall of Famer Marc Spears. Y'all ain't got time to sit around talking to me about Charles Barkley and basketball all day. So we're going to say goodbye now. Marc Spears, thank you very much for taking the time.
One last tip. One last thing, Michael Holley. Tell your Celtics. Tell your Celtics this. If they win the title tonight, nobody, please, I beg of you, nobody try to recreate the Kobe photo. That man was sad. That man was dealing with some personal stuff at the time. That is not an opportunity for you to have your Kobe moment, okay? Do something else. It ain't that hard.
Speaking of one person in particular.
I could be speaking to anybody. It could be anybody doing that.
Okay. All right. If they win, I will let Celtics Nation know. But y'all be careful out there in the streets tonight, because I think there's going to be a championship celebration. Y'all be careful. If you need some help,
like a warning.
Call your no.
Yeah. You ain't lying.
Call your boy. Call me up. Call me up. I'll come get
Send
you.
your helicopter.
Love you guys. Take care.
Love you too, brother.
Love you, bro.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.